Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CUBE Vanguard. Today I'm testing even more new equipment, so you'll see weird things happening on my screen. Like I suddenly noticed there's a bit of yellow, like I'm kind of cut in half. I am taking an OBS studio course right now. I'm actually taking two, but I haven't gotten too far, as you can tell, and I'm still experimenting. So it looks like I'm kind of cut in half, which is fine for now, but I will improve that in the future. But I'm not here to talk today about my video skills and challenges. I'm here to talk about the CKA, Certified Kubernetes Administrator exam. So I took the exam on Saturday, which was pretty courageous. Saturday, I always normally take them on Sunday because it gives you that extra day to study. But I'll be honest, I always found that I ended up watching movies and like just sitting around doing nothing but worrying. So it turned out to be better to get it out of the way on Saturday. Now, keep in mind, too, that unlike other exams, like I just recently did the VEEM Certified Engineer exam, there you get the result right away. With the CKA, the CKS, and the CKD, you don't. You have to wait 24 hours. So it can be kind of annoying, to say the least. On a side note, though, I will say that the VMC, the VEEM Certified Engineer exam, has changed somewhat as well, in that it used to be that right at the end of the exam, when you pressed end, it would pop up and say pass or fail, whatever. Now it didn't do anything. It came up with a weird screen. And I thought, uh-oh, what did I do? And you start thinking if you pressed the wrong button or did something silly. It turns out that's on purpose. It's got some new algorithm where it takes a few minutes. So you have to go out to the desk. I actually didn't do it remote because, the remote stuff I'll talk about in a second, but it can be annoying. I actually went to a place, which is a whole story in itself, because I took the bus out there. After COVID in Toronto, there are no test centers in the downtown or even like relatively close to downtown area. They're all out, where the polar bears live. And so I have my bus app, the bus that tells you when the bus is coming. And it was freezing day. And 3 minutes, great. I went out there. Well, it lied. The bus app lied. It came in 10 minutes. So by the time I got on the bus, I was freezing. And anyways, I got there and I scheduled the exam for 9 a.m. thinking, great. You get there half an hour early, you can prepare. What I didn't do, which was strategically stupid, I didn't phone them and say, well, do you guys actually open half an hour earlier? Right? So I found out when I got there, and the answer was no. So I was in a parking lot way out with huge winds, hurricane, there was snow, all sorts of horrible stuff. And I froze to death while I was waiting to do the exam. So when I went into the exam in the end, I was not in the best of, my brains were frozen. So nevertheless, I did the exam, and then I had the scare, when there's no result on the screen. So then I went out, and then the secretary said, oh, wait, it'll be printed out here in a second. So actually, old school, they print it out. And then she prints it out, and she immediately puts it, like, face downwards, and I'm not allowed to look. I was going to study her face and see if she printed it and went, ah, or ooh, but no, very, very careful not to do that. So then I had to look at the page. Problem is I hadn't put my glasses on. So I pull it up, and I can't, So then I had to look for my glasses first. So it was this delayed reaction. And then I saw I had passed. But I really created a lot of extra stress for myself. So that's another thing I was going to talk about is, there's the exam itself, and then there's all the stress that you can self-create by making strategic mistakes. And it's best, obviously, not to do that, because when we're in an exam situation, every bit of calmness, every bit of, collected mental brains, whatever, is important. Okay, that's enough about the VMC. So the VMC, I went to a test center because I was sick of the whole Procter & Gamble stuff. Well, Procter & Gamble is a soap company. I just joked. It's the proctoring. It's not that I don't like the proctors. It's just that, you're sitting down doing an exam, and then they start asking you the questions to cheat. You show them your identification, and then you got to take your camera and scan around the room, under your desk, and all this. And I don't know, every time I've got a stand-up desk so I can make it go up and down. It's just a thing that goes on top of my desk, which I can put up and down. And they always don't dig that. So, I have to look and they have to see if there's no microphone there or something. I don't know. I guess people go to extremes to cheat, but it's a little unnerving. Anyways, so I sat down. The beautiful thing about Linux Foundation and Linux Foundation exams are that you get 2 tries, which I think is fair. These things are expensive, okay? I'll recommend right away you can find a discount. I think it's now $395 American dollars for these exams. Okay, I live in Canada. So when you see American dollars, you can just, go up, put a plus sign multiple times next to it. I don't know what the exchange is now, but it's going to be a lot more in Canadian dollars. So that's expensive. And if you're a student, I don't know what you would do. So there are discounts. Cyber Monday and Black Friday, I think the best ones, like 50% off. Or try to get your company to pay for it, but I don't know. Sometimes it's successful. It depends. If you're not working with Kubernetes, it's going to be hard to tell them, hey, pay for this exam, because it just means you're going to leave or something, I guess. Nevertheless, you get a discount. The good news is, though, you get 2 tries, which I think is really nice because, you might have a bad day. Look, when I froze in the parking lot for the VMCE, I might have walked in and just like this, right? So it's nice you've got that feeling that, okay, if I make a mistake, if I have a bad day, or if there's an area I've kind of missed totally in the study, I've got another chance. Now, if you fail, then you get the second chance, then it gets nervous a bit, but nevertheless, it is better than having only one shot. Okay, so my experience this time was pretty good with the proctor. I mean, I did the camera scan and whatnot, and 10 times under the desk. They also ask you to show your wrists too. So I guess the high-tech Apple phones that communicate to you, and to show your ears, which I thought was really, really. I started thinking, did I wash my ears today? But obviously, people like put things in their ears. And I understand with a multiple choice exam that, yeah, you could, have some hand signals and then, yes, that's A. But with the Kubernetes exam, the CKS or CKD or CKA, these are, performance-based. These are command lines. So I don't know what, I don't know how you're going to tell someone in the other room, oh, by the way, I need to do an O equals JSON path. What's the, good luck. By the time the information gets back to you, you'll run out of time. Still, they have a standard, and you have to stick to it. So I've done a number of exams for Linux Foundation already, and so that was good, because what it means is I was prepared for things that were coming. One thing I wasn't prepared for, and this, again, is a bit of a kick at myself, because I tell everyone to read the curriculum, read the instructions a million times, and then guess what? I didn't do that. I thought, well, I'm a veteran, I don't need to. So they've changed the setup. They now have this remote desktop thing. And it's fine. The only problem is you can use an external monitor. They're going to check that a million times, but you can. It'll be only one. At least that's what I think the Code Cloud told me. I asked them after the fact. But when you're using your laptop monitor, I found that the terminal, because it's a remote desktop onto an Ubuntu, the terminal and the question panel, they wouldn't fit on the screen well enough for me. So I was constantly having to resize the screens. You can imagine how much fun that is. You do an exam and you read the question, and a lot of times you need that question open because what happens is they will put in the question certain things like the name of the pod or the name of the deployment, and you can just click on it and then copy and paste it in. So you save a lot of time typing. Well, if that's this small and all the characters then go kind of weird sideways in your terminal, you can't do that. So I had to constantly resize, which was extraordinarily annoying. And luckily, I've learned through a lot of exam experiences not to freak out, because I did that in the beginning. It's like, it's all over. If you do that, it's not going to help. You might as well breathe deeply, be calm, and think, oh, how do I get out of this situation? For better or for worse. So I ended up resizing all the time, which was a bit silly, but it worked in the end. Next time, obviously, because they allow it, I would use a external monitor to the laptop so that I could have more real estate to see everything. Especially, for instance, you're allowed to use the Kubernetes documentation, okay, and that's in a web browser, and that also was an issue because, I'd have to resize that, then resize the other thing. I ended up resizing. I became an expert in resizing desktops. The other thing, too, was that my mouse at times had issues. I don't know if it was just me, being, Mr. Click. Your remote desktop. If you go nuts clicking, sometimes it doesn't like it. So I don't know if that was the system or it was me, but the screen size is definitely an issue. Okay, so luckily, so I finished the exam. I finished it beforehand. I used my age-old tactic, which I learned from others. I didn't think this up, is you go through, you read the question carefully. Very important, because it's not that they're being mean, trying to trick you, but you'll forget one thing, and I did forget one thing in one question. It was an easy thing, and I don't know, speed reading or something, and I missed it. I don't think it was a colossal problem. I think it was probably, they give you points, I think, for, the amount that you got right in a question. So if there's a big, long question, I believe, you can ask that just in case, don't trust me, that if you get like 9 of the 10 things right, they're not going to wipe you out just because you got one little thing wrong. I think that's the case. Okay, so read the questions carefully. And then if right away you think, uh-oh, I can't, I don't know what, whatever, go to the next one. Flag it, go to the next one. Because time is extremely important in these exams. I know people who have not answered 3 questions, and I'm not going to lie and say 4, but I know a couple of people who did not answer 3 questions. They left them for later, and when they got back, they didn't have time, and they still passed, okay? So the worst thing you can do, and it happened to me on this exam, and this was an example of a mental block, okay? So I don't know which question it was, the 3rd or the 4th, but it was into the exam already. I got a question which was straightforward. It should have been straightforward. And my initial reaction was, oh yeah, I know this. And I got to the terminal, and it just wasn't happening. I couldn't explain it. And what starts to happen is you start getting frustrated because you say, well, I know this. I've done this a million times, but something just didn't click. Okay, that's it. No tears, no nothing. Click, flag it, and go on. What happens? I had time at the end. I came back, and guess what? When I came back, suddenly someone turned the switch on my brain. Well, I shouldn't say that because they'll think I got help from outside. My brain turned itself on for that question. I was able to answer it. I'm pretty certain successfully, in the sense that I saw that, things were running and everything was happy. So a good example of what can happen. You might know the material, and for some reason, at that particular point in time, it's not happening. Move on. And you might not know something, in which case move on anyways, and then come back and just give it a shot, type something in or do something, just in case, right? So very important. I had time at the end. I flagged quite a few questions, and so you want to be careful with that. I was a little bit silly this time. I flagged too many. So there were some that I knew were pretty much correct, but I didn't do the extra check because I was worried about time. I can't remember, think of what an extra check could be, to check to make 100% certain that what you did was right. So I didn't want to waste time on that. I flagged to come back, and then I came back and I realized that this was a little bit silly. It was correct. So that was another thing to think about. So flag carefully, but definitely don't, whatever you do, get stuck in the mud on a question, because you can just use up all your time. And it actually happened to me 3 years ago when I did the first CKA. Well, I did do it twice 3 years ago. So I failed the first time. And one of the reasons was I got one question where I just got stuck on. So I was being like a stubborn bull, just going forward, 1, 2, 3, 4, and for some reason I thought, that's what you do. And on one of the questions I got stuck, and I wasted an enormous amount of time, and then I didn't end up answering a couple of questions, which I don't know if I would have known them or not, but nevertheless, it was a silly strategy. So don't do that. Okay, so then after the exam finishes, then you've got the waiting period, which isn't fun, because even if you feel confident, most people second guess themselves, and I do it all the time. So, well, wait a minute, what if I had, some kind of a brain lapse, and all this what if stuff, and it's 24 hours. And then of course, when it gets close to 24 hours, you're checking your email all the time, right? Waiting for the thing to come in. But I will say this for the Linux Foundation, they were totally honest. Right at about 24 hours, maybe 24 and 10 minutes, email came in saying, yes, you passed. So big relief, happiness, whatever. Interesting facts this time. After passing the exam, of course, you broadcast it. You want everyone to know. And what's the point of doing this if only you and your cat and your family know you passed, right? So you obviously tell people on LinkedIn you're happy. Maybe your boss will pat you on the back, give you a bonus, salary raise, maybe. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. No, I'm joking, of course. But this time, as opposed to 3 years ago, I started getting a lot of connection requests on LinkedIn from people. And it was interesting because maybe it's gotten so much more popular. That's the reason. So a lot more people know about CKA. They want to know about it. And people ask questions. So I did get some questions, people asking me, what were the questions? So the thing is this. You don't want to be mean. What I say in those situations is, look, first of all, I can't tell you because there's an NDA. It states there. I mean, people don't read these things, and I read them ever since I signed up for something. They charged me $15. I read everything now. It says, you non-disclosure agreement, whatever. So I politely answer, say, look, I can't answer what questions. First of all, I don't even remember. That's what happens to me. I get into this kind of and then afterwards it's all a blur, anyways. But even to hint about the questions, you're not allowed to do. And instead, what I do is try to be nice and never be mean to people, because people maybe they're in a situation they need to pass this exam, it's desperate or something, right? So what I do instead is say, look, I tell them what I did to prepare, what courses I used, what material I used. I tell them how many times I practiced. And I also warn them about things like the killer shell. So the killer shell practice exam you get with purchasing the exam. And it is harder. It is harder, okay? And even the fellow who does it, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's in Germany. He even says, look, folks, I'm making this a lot harder, okay? So don't like do this exam, fail it miserably, and then, I don't know, go into enormous depression. So this is just to really stretch you, right? Stretch your mind so you're prepared. Then when you go on the real exam, it might be easier. So I use that as well. And Code Cloud, of course, and the Code Cloud mock exams were fantastic. I didn't have that 3 years ago. There were no mock exams. That was excellent because excellent questions, but also and the killer shell as well, they get you used to doing the performance type exams, okay? So as opposed to multiple choice. So you're in there, you're typing, and just doing it over and over and over again, you get faster, and that helps. Aliases, I only used 2. I used the one for dry run equals client, OYAML, so that you can create a YAML file, K run, whatever. And I used the force, the delete force grace period 0, so that I could kill a pod right away. Very important to remember that if you do kubectl delete pod, it's going to take its sweet time going away. And that's extremely frustrating because you're looking at the clock going, come on, hurry up. Well, you can kick it. You can, delete force now. So I created those 2 aliases. That's all I did on the alias front. And apart from that, I would say that it was a pleasant experience. And people ask me, well, was it hard? That's a very hard question to answer from the point of view that 3 years ago when I first did the exam, and I had literally no experience, it was extraordinarily hard. It was also my first experience with a performance-based exam. So I was sweating and shaking after finishing it, honestly. This time, I've done a lot of these exams now, so a lot comes with experience, okay? So it's hard for me to say, was it hard or not hard? Also, if you do things repetitively a lot, they seem too easy, but they're not really, because if you went back in time to yourself 3 years ago, you'd see they weren't easy at all. So that's important to remember. Apart from that, I think that it's a fair exam, definitely. I don't think there was anything mean. And when I use mean, I used to remember the old Microsoft exams. I was in MCSE, I wouldn't tell you what year, but they used to love giving you these like questions like this long, and 90% of it's silliness. And there's only some important points. And so you have to read all this stuff and whatever. And then there's like 20 answers and 3, and you have multiple choice, 3 are correct, kind of. So nothing like that, or nothing with the not. They're multiple choice exams. You have this long sentence, and in the middle will say not. And you'll read it quickly. Oh, yeah, I know that. But you didn't see the not, so it's the opposite. Nothing like that. But you have to be fast on the keyboard, and you have to remain calm, and you have to think, obviously. It's not one of those exams where, you can't guess. It's not multiple choice. Highly recommend it. Again, about certifications, I hear this all the time. People say, well, who cares? They're not worth it, whatever. Experience is everything. So my attitude on that is it's both important. Experience, obviously, that's what it is. But the certifications are good too. Now, why do I always say, if you fail, it's no big deal? In fact, sometimes even better. Because let's face it, what are you trying to do to get the certification? Getting the piece of paper, what is that going to do for you? Even if you get a job, if in 2 weeks' time everything's falling apart, you can't go to your boss and waive the certification paper, the boss is going to say, why isn't it working? So at the end of the day, you're doing this to learn, okay? So if you fail the first time, no big deal. In fact, you're going to restudy. You're going to even get stronger at it, okay? That's another reason why any kind of cheating or dumps is really bad. And there's 2 reasons there. One is because you're cheating yourself, because at the end of the day, you won't be able to do the job. But also, you're hurting all of us. Like, we're all in the same group. I consider system administrators, IT, technical folks to be all in the same boat, okay? We're all trying to prove ourselves. We're all fighting against management to get salary increases, right? But joking aside, if we start to devalue the certifications, so in other words, if a lot of people start getting them because they've gotten them, by buying them or cheating, then they're not taken seriously anymore. And so it kind of hurts us. So don't do that. It's not worth it. And it's fun. Look, when you pass and you learn it, it's just fun. All right, well, that's enough for this week. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week on the KUBE Vanguard.